Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Podcast episode 202. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
And on today's episode, we have a really exciting one. This only comes around like every 3 years. We are going to discuss the 4 Horsemen of 10th edition. We did this 3 years ago for 9th edition. This is just a cool way to wrap things up and see what all broke over the edition.
Sounds good. All right, so 10th edition is going to be wrapping up here. Let's talk about GW's failures.
Psychic phase is still gone. Oh, you mean different things. Okay.
Yeah, balance-wise, the oopsies.
First, we should talk about what makes one of the 4 horsemen. So these are basically what we have considered to be the 4 biggest rules issues of the edition. The true outliers. Something that is not just, oh, this was too cheap.
Right, and these are the rules, issues, problems that result in the faction or army being too good. Not, oh, that's just dumb and sucks.
Yeah, so Admech, sorry, you don't get to be one of the 4 horsemen this edition.
Right, we're looking for like the scary rules that going up against the army was like, oh, they haven't fixed that yet? Shit. And it's also not just, oh, that index or that codex was just point costed wrong.
To give examples here, Death Guard Codex launch had like a 60% win rate for like 6 months, while Thousand Suns 3 months into that had a 51% win rate and then got nerfed to oblivion. Thanks, GW. But that doesn't count because that's just, look, your points were too good. We're not looking for stuff like that. We're not looking for basically your current complaint of whatever the meta is right now, however you feel about Catan or Victrix Guard or whatever. The fact that they're just overstated for their points cost is not what we care about right now. We are looking for the true issues where there was a fundamental problem with the rules. So let's go through some of the honorable mentions that don't quite make it to the 4 horsemen status, but it clearly caused issues throughout the edition.
Starting off with like Tyranids, the Spore mines early into the edition were able to do actions.
Yes, this one almost made horseman status just because it actually caused such a large rule change, but it didn't actually make the final 4 here. But it is a cool one to talk about. So the Biovore specifically was the problem, not the Spore mine unit. No one was adding that to their list.
Right, no, it was being able to drop additional Spore mines around the battlefield and like do actions, score your secondaries. So now they fixed it by saying if you have 0 OC, you can't do actions.
Yeah. Then we've got Codex Necrons. When it launched, there was a bunch of stuff with the Wraiths and Technomancers and all that. But more impressively, there was my least favorite detachment, Hypercrypt Legion, which was a constant problem child of teleporting Catan around.
Right. So they were able to put units Catan back into strategic reserve and then bring them back down, and they had a strat that could bring it down 3-inch deep strike. A little bit of a problem with the amount of mobility that enabled for these rather scary units. They tried fixing with just like doing some quick point increases. Didn't quite do enough. Then they made it so that you can't use the 3-inch deep strike for monsters, so the Catan couldn't do it anymore. That helped, but like really it was all of that put together that kind of phased things out. Of note, the biggest problem on this particular one was how oppressive it felt, because the win rate really wasn't that crazy. Like it was still high. It was like 55, 58-ish% win rate, which yeah, on the higher end, but the way it played, how you had to play against it, and the fact that it was really abusing Catan felt oppressive.
Yes, nothing gets the internet more against you than being flashy. Catan will always be the thing people remember being broken because they're cool.
Yeah. Eventually there was a final fix where they made it so you couldn't take as many units back to strategic reserves. So like you only got 2.
And at the same time, there was the core rule change of all 3-inch deep strikes game wide went to 6.
Yeah. Thanks Hypercrypt Legion on that one.
They weren't alone on that. It was several of them across. It had basically become the meta for any faction with access to it.
Yeah, but like they were the ones that made it obviously stop doing it kind of thing.
And then we have sisters, early sisters characters for those who don't remember. The old Miracle Flamer BS.
Yeah, so the whole like Miracles thing, original launch was a little overtuned maybe, but in addition to the Bringers of Flame detachment, which made it so that their ranged weapons got assault, and if you're within 12, gained a strength, with some just like kind of busted strats, particularly the one that gave torrent weapons devastating wounds.
Let's go.
Yeah, it turned out that those lists were bringing a lot of flames, and it wasn't so strong as to being like, oh my god, nobody's playing anything else, which is why I don't think it quite makes the 4 Horsemen tier, but it was close to being very strong kind of thing, that they did have to do some nerfs.
Yes, this was one of the more carpet bomb changes. Bringers of Flame got all sorts of nerfs at once to its stratagem costs and limits on its stratagems.
And it was cut in half to be within 6 inches, not 12 of your target.
At the same time, Miracle Dice got nerfed, for those who don't remember Bricky's Crash Out.
And they also raised the points on like basically every unit that was being brought in Bringers of Flame, including all of the enhancements in the detachment. It was just over and over kicking them essentially, which definitely sucked. But a lot of that was just because like the whole army was warped around it. Not the greatest, but we've got another honorable mention.
Yeah, that's Space Wolves. And if I say you're playing against a competitive Space Wolf list in 10th edition, what does your mind immediately go to and you start dreading?
Deployment phase.
Turn 1. Seeing 18 Thunderwolves.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Wolf Jail. And Wolf Jail obviously annoyed a lot of people, but it's not actually 4 Horsemen worthy because it is not its only example of existing.
No, we'll bring up another one.
Yeah, this is basically the example of you had access to something like Thunderwolves where it was like 18 4-wound models. They had 4-up invulns. They could move extremely fast across the board and lock you to your deployment zone. Thus, Wolf Jail. They really didn't get hit that hard. They only ate like a 10-point increase or something at one point.
Yeah.
It might have been 20, but the point is like it wasn't that big of a change in order to really nerf this one. And it's why it's not really 4 Horsemen worthy. It's just an example of, again, like with Death Guard or certain points with CSM, where it's just like, this was just strong.
And I think for this one particularly, it was the strategy. You had to like understand that it was a possibility and plan around it. And like if you didn't, you lost that deployment essentially. But like once it became known, it was like, okay, we can have a game now. So like altogether, it wasn't actually that bad because it was really just that little bit there.
Yeah, it was more a meta shift than an actual rules thing where people started bringing a lot more infiltrator stuff, deploying up board, having basically bubble wrap.
Yeah, and once you kind of had those answers to it with the point increase, it kind of just fell away and like, yeah, you could still do stuff, but like wasn't that scary. So let's get into our actual, the 4 Horsemen, the real scary shit.
So these ones, again, there's other picks to put in the 4 slots, but these were our choices after looking at quite the long list of things people complained about over the edition. These are not always the most memorable, like the first example, because some of them were hit so quickly, which is honestly going back to our 9th edition 4 Horsemen. The Votan Codex is like the prime example. It was this is so broken it had to be nerfed before the book was on sale.
That was wild in a way. But honestly, 10th has done a pretty good job of seeing that there's a real problem and addressing it reasonably quickly. Not always in the best way, but like there was an understanding that there was a problem and they did something.
Other than my joke about Death Guard, there have been very few problems that lasted longer than 3 months this edition, which means a lot of these people don't even remember because they weren't focused on like the competitive scene during that time frame or anything.
Yeah, it's very possible.
But for the first on our list, it is an example of something that got hit extremely quick to the point where many people didn't even see it in action. They just heard the horror stories or saw the math on how bad it was. And that is Daka Daka Daka.
Right. So the more Daka detachment had the Daka 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 detachment rule, which was during your shooting phase, ranged weapons equipped by Orc infantry and Orc walker models from your army have the sustained hits 2 ability. And while the WA is active for your army. Ranged weapons equipped by orc infantry and walker models from your army have the assault ability. It turns out that most orc weapons are not balanced around having assault and sustained hits too.
This is one of the more interesting ones to bring up for the 10th edition Horseman, which is previously Daka was just part of the army rule. Why was it a problem this time? And the reason is because it wasn't the army rule this time. So they didn't balance around it from the get-go. You now added it later with, again, this was like a Grotmas detachment. Technically, I think this one was like a 3-month data slate detachment, not Grotmas, right?
Yeah, it wasn't the Grotmas, because the Grotmas was the tactical, which actually hit some nerfs right as this one was coming out, because it was doing okay. It wasn't too crazy, but it was like, that's probably going to be a bit internal balance problems kind of thing.
Yeah, whereas now you add this in later, because everyone did point out accurately and correctly that it was stupid to not have Daka represented.
Yeah, it sucked not having like your shooting detachment in orcs as an option. Big hole.
Yeah, or just having the other part of orcs' memory common knowledge as part of their army rule like it was in previous editions.
Right.
But that meant that all of the orc data sheets were not designed with this in mind.
Very much not. And if you end up like doing some of the math, the sustained hits 2, if you have a ballistic skill of 5 up, is basically going to give you double the damage output that you would normally have, which is fucking frightening when like orcs were not good shooting, but like they were doing okay enough before and they had good melee. So like orcs were kind of lower, but like they had enough to do some stuff. And then, well, let's just double the damage on your ranged weapons.
And give them assault as a little bonus. Just a treat.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's only during the WA.
Yeah, it's only during the WA. How often could you WA?
Well, turns out that there was a strat that was 1 CP to give one of your orc units the WA active thing. You know, because that's a pretty common thing in a lot of detachments is like you have your, you know, ability that you want to turn on. You have your detachment ability that you want to like activate. So, hey, here's your strat to do it. Perfectly reasonable.
So that brings up the question, which I liked pointing this out when we were talking about this originally with the patrons, of why was this safe stratagem that most factions have several detachments with a copy of suddenly a problem this time?
Well, I mean, to start with, like the WA itself is exceptionally strong. I mean, it's kind of balanced around only being able to do it the once kind of thing. And with the detachment rule giving assault, this strat is also like, hey, here's all the buffs from the WA and you also get assault. So like use it as needed kind of thing. And it's all for 1 CP.
Exactly. So what did they do additionally, like say with some Gretchen?
Yeah. So the actual units being taken advantage of with the more Daka detachment, we've got the obvious like tank bustas and ludas were just not balanced around sustained hits too. We understand they're dealing double damage. That's messed up. But there's also some real fun that you can do with Zogrod, Wartsnaga, and Garrots. Zogrod's got Scout 9 and move 12 inches in the WA. All that put together in this detachment means that orcs are basically doing wolf jail while also doing a ranged detachment.
Yeah, so you could trap them in their deployment and then just blow them off the board.
It was kind of silly. There was lots of ludas, good amount of tank bustas, bunch of shock attack gun mechs, and then you had the Zogrod and Grot annoyance.
Yeah, the Grot jail. And you would put them in trucks so that everyone would be super mobile.
It got a little wild and like obviously too good when you looked at it from just the numbers. So GW kind of did an emergency fix on this one pretty quickly.
Yeah, it lasted 1 month and a little bit of change.
Yeah, I remember it being pretty quick, and it was an emergency nerf. They dealt with this. The detachment rule became ranged weapons equipped by orc infantry and walkers have the assault ability, and then while in the WA, your shooting of infantry and walkers get sustained hits 1. So they basically like flipped it and nerfed the sustained hits.
And then you might think, well, it's not too bad as long as I spam get stuck in lads. But they changed it to 2 CP.
Gonna be tough because, yeah, 2 CP strat, it makes sense. Perfectly reasonable for that to be a 2 CP strat given how strong it is.
I still think it could have been 1 CP because of how much weaker the new version was. But again, they did not want this to continue to be a problem after they nerfed it once. So they murdered it.
Yeah. They also hit one of the other strats. There was one to like ignore cover against a unit. So you could kind of like everybody pile against that with your ranged attacks. And then they changed it to just be like ignore cover by one of your shooting orc units. So like they made sure that the more Daka detachment was not going to be a problem.
I do think it's interesting to think about the fact that this may not have actually ever found a best list because it lived for such a short time. Most people hadn't even gotten things fixed up to play the detachment by the time it got nerfed.
Yeah, it was such a quick turnaround that you were just kind of like putting together a list that you had access to that sounded kind of neat. But it was also one of those so good that you didn't really have to try too hard. There was so many options from your orc units. None of them were balanced around having sustained hits too. So like everything just got that much better. It was a real short one, but even in that short amount of time, they put up some pretty good numbers. The win rate was like, I don't know, 60%, a little bit over that or something like that. And it was likely to increase. Like you said, we didn't find a perfect list. And I don't think there was going to be too much play against it. It wasn't just Grot Jail. There was also all the shooting involved. And like that could have been a real problem if they didn't solve it.
All right, so moving on from our first Horseman, we have the second one here. This moves into early edition. And I think a lot of our examples in the long list were from Index Land, which is a good sign that over the course of the edition, things got mostly fixed up. And our later examples tend to be from either a Grotmas detachment or the every 3-month detachments.
Yeah, a lot of it was Index when the edition came out, which I guess makes sense because new edition had a decent amount of changes. And then some detachments that maybe were not quite well thought out with the rest of the 10th edition factions balance.
So our second one here is Gene Stealer cults. Specifically, do you remember when they could revive Battle Line on a 2 infinitely?
Yeah, back at the original Index.
Yeah, for those who don't remember, Cult Ambush got reworked like I think literally 3 or 4 times this edition. Actually fully reworked.
They made some changes a lot of times, but big reworks, something like 3 or 4. But the original Index made it so that anytime a Gene Stealer unit was destroyed, you roll a d6. On a 4-up, it was placed into Cult Ambush, which you could basically deep strike onto an ambush marker. Complicated, whatever. But it also had add 3 to that d6 if it's a battle line. So yeah, 2-up, get your battle line unit.
And then you combined it with having good war gear, solid buffs from characters, aberrants, which were crazy efficient point-wise and could still be revived on a 4.
With their 4-up Feel No Pain. The actual like detachment rule, pretty solid with good strats. Neophyte hybrids with their seismic cannons were kind of everywhere.
The Index Acolyte blobs. Parts of me are like, this was toxic, and other parts of me are like, man, this was like peak Gene Stealers.
It kind of was. And to be fair, there was a couple other problems when 10th edition initially launched with, indexes. So like Gene Stealers wasn't doing its own thing all on its own. There were some other ones that we'll talk about, but they were at like a 65% win rate. It was kind of disgusting how much of a problem those revives were essentially. It was true horde, man.
Yeah, and they were part of the them and Guard and a couple others, which Guard almost made the final 4 with the reviving Sentinels, hitting indirect fire on a 2 on a strength 12 weapon and infinite mortar teams buffed by Ursula Creed, and they came close.
It was thought about.
Yeah, but they ended up helping getting the reinforcements and stuff get nerfed at the same time, which was another problem. But the main fix here was honestly pretty decent for a short-term patch, which was they changed the army rule for Cult Ambush to now be on a 5-up, not a 4-up. You only get +1 to your result with battle line, and then another +1 if it's first or second battle round. So that made it over the course of the game a lot less reliable late game to get things back to score those extra points.
Right. It just made the consistency of the army rule not as oppressive while still maintaining the same idea.
For what it's worth, I actually like the Codex version of the army rule better, but this was a good way to not fully redesign it during the Index.
Yes, and also original Codex release had its own problems that needed to get updated a few times.
Oh, that Codex, we'll be talking about it when we review the Codexes for 10th edition, don't you worry.
Yeah, there was also a small change of making sure that all the models you brought back were within 3 inches of the marker, because there was like, technically you would like be able to bring it within 3 inches of the marker and then maintaining coherency of the unit, string them along kind of thing.
But the 3 inches caused issues when it came to the jackals, and
Yeah, like there were some max size units.
I still remember the template. I don't know if Eric knows this, but there was a template you had to put down so you could place jackals within 3 inches.
I do not remember the template. I do remember people being like, can I actually put this unit? Can I physically do it?
It was mathematically possible to do it in a single template.
Okay.
Like you had to get the template so you could figure out how to fit them in.
That's pretty annoying, but also it stopped some nonsense about daisy chaining your units around in weird ways and screening and all that stuff.
It does get into one of my weaknesses with GW and their love of only certain numbers like 3, 6, 9, 12. Just say 4 inches on this one and it would have been a lot easier and it wouldn't have caused issues. Like there's no reason it had to be exactly 3. It's just you like 3 for small number.
They have their specific numbers, and the only time that they go away from it is if it's funny because it's chaos number.
Because it's chaos, it will overwrite balance as long as it makes a funny number and everyone giggle.
Yeah. So with that change to the actual army rule, it more or less brought Gene Stealers back into like, they were still good, but not oppressive in any real way.
Yeah, Gene Stealers really had a wild addition if you just look at their balance of they ricocheted all over the place during the addition.
That is quite true. Part of their win rate percentage is due to Aeldari, though, because a lot of times when Gene Stealer Cult was doing things, so was Aeldari.
And specifically Index Eldar and the original Wraith Knight, for those who remember.
All right, Index Aeldari. We've got a few things here.
Oh, there was a lot. There's not one thing wrong here. There was like 5.
Yeah, so we're not really trying to bring up, oh, the Codex was just undercosted and too good. Aeldari Index was that.
The Eldari Index really showed off basically all the design issues at the beginning of 10th. All at once.
Essentially, yeah. So dev wounds to start with, those inflicted just like normal mortal wounds, spillover included.
Which is good because that's how they denoted that something was psychic. They gave it dev wounds so that it would act like psychic should act.
Yeah, but with Aeldari, they had the ability to get like auto 6s with their whole Strands of Fate messing with the die, which can be a kind of a problem with inflicting mortals that have spillover.
That are on indirect fire weapons.
That's another thing. Indirect fire was benefit of cover and -1 to hit. Doesn't sound too bad, except the points changed for a lot of things, and turned out that was really strong. Guard had some reasonable lists because of that.
Yep, and Eldar did the same with even more broken synergies.
Yeah. On a similar vein to indirect fire, there was also the entire towering rule and how Knights and Eldari's Wraith Knight kind of ignored the whole blocking line of sight thing. So yeah, there was a few things. Aeldari Index was kind of broken.
A little kind of broken.
But the real standout here at the moment of the initial release was like the dev wounds spillover with indirect fire or the Knight. Adding all of that onto their Strands of Fate die and all just like the little bonus combo type things that you could do in the actual index itself. They played off each other real well, and man, it was annoying. Lots of fire prisms, lots of Night spinners. Wraith Knights actually showed up pretty frequently at the start.
Farseers, Yakarn.
Oh, Yakarn was an entire, yeah. Ooh.
Again, there was more than one thing in Eldar.
So the first change was changing the fate dice to be 1 per phase, because previously you were able to use, as many as you wanted when you wanted. So I guess you could technically alpha strike with all 12 of your fate dice if you rolled hot. But realistically, even using 2 or 3 all at the same time early in the game could be really devastating. So changing it to just 1 per phase was like, that is a nerf. It is noticeable, but also it made sense as like a maybe they just forgot FAQ kind of stuff.
And also, they universally, not just for Eldari, but for everybody, increased the points of things with indirect fire and towering that were doing well.
And they made sure to go crazy. Wraith Knight went up 105 points.
And it was still used.
Yeah, it was.
So this was the first change of the edition. And then in the second change, we got the quote-unquote real fixes for Eldar and the other standouts of the early edition.
Yeah, that first one was kind of like Band-Aid. Oh shit, let's try and do something.
Yeah, it was to see if this is all it needed, or if we needed full change to core rules.
So those core changes to the rules.
There were a few. Not all of them just because of Eldar, but Eldar was the reason for a lot of them, at least partially, which is why Index Knights, while they were a problem, aren't on this list. Index Guard aren't on this list because Eldar kinda takes the wheel over both.
Eldar did all of it.
So yeah, in the second round of fixes, Devastating Wounds was no longer pure mortal wounds. Instead, it just ignores your armor and invuln, so it doesn't splash.
Towering was nerfed, so you can no longer Overwatch. And Towering only really mattered if you were partially in the ruin, because like you can hide from the Towering unit, and the Towering unit can hide itself. So like ruins were a thing, so you had to be partially in. That's a little weird.
Yeah, so you had to start tapping walls, which is the usual way we talk about it now.
And not to be left out, indirect fire also was changed, so you couldn't Overwatch.
Yeah, so again, they were hit in 3 different ways. Before we get into, they also got more targeted point increases. The Wraith Knight went up another 40 points. That's 145 points and 3 nerfs.
I think one of the other big ones was Fire Prism went up like 50 points over those 2 changes. And it's not a fucking knight level point. Like... So that's a lot of nerfs. Turns out it wasn't enough. They weren't quite the oppressive like 70% win rate. No, they were only like 58 to 60% win rate now.
This is the one thing people will remember from Index Land, and it's why I give them a lot of props for the amount of times they fix something within 3 months, or in the worst cases 6. Because this is where people start to cry broken edition, everything is terrible, GW killed my dog. Having 9 months of the same thing be dominant. That's what upsets people a lot, especially when that thing is not a Space Marine.
True. But yeah, the Aeldari Index, just like it still had a strong core detachment rule. The army rule itself was still very strong. It had a bunch of movement shenanigans it could do. There was just a lot of power built up in the units and the rules. So they had to keep nerfing it. The fate dice got nerfed again to be that you only roll 6 d6s to get your fate dice instead of 12. But they gave you the little bonus of you can use as many per phase as you want now. And they also got a bunch of other, like Night Spinner was nerfed, Yinkarin got nerfed.
Yeah, the Yakar nerf was to stop it from teleporting around even on your opponent's turn, which was something we didn't even really bring up because everyone was focused on the Knights at first till they started calming down and people realized the teleporting demon elf is really damn annoying.
Yeah, but with all of that combined, eventually they got Eldar kind of under control to be like 50% win rate or something like that. But it does show the amount of nerfs, like points-wise, unit abilities, core rules changed, not only because of this index, but this index used all of it.
Yeah, and there is like the other minor stuff, like later on, Dev Wounds would change again to what it is now, where it's mortals and they don't spill.
Indirect fire got hit again.
Yeah, indirect fire got changed to its current iteration, which was Guard was the real one to get that final one nailed in there.
But yeah, the Aeldari index was definitely a 4 horseman.
It is probably, of the 4 horsemen, it is death. It rides the white horse.
It's the reason Genestealer Cult Index was only at like a 65% win rate, though.
Yes. I think it barely ever got above 60% because Eldar was just more dominant at the same time.
And like a lot of Genestealer Cult lists were tuned to try and beat the Eldar. Like they were the option that could kind of fight Eldar, but like even then it was tough.
All right. So we have a 4th horseman and we cut a lot from this list. I think we've mentioned most of the big ones now, but for those who remember Grotmas, there was a very short time frame where there was something very busted in Chaos Land.
Legions of Excess. Oh boy.
Not to be outdone by everybody else, Chaos got one broken thing this edition that was extremely memorable, and that was they allowed Slaanesh to play like Slaanesh should.
Basically. So the detachment rule was units from your army are eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which they fell back, and they had Seductive Gambit, which was each time this unit ends a charge move, you can declare it will perform a Seductive Gambit. If you do, until the end of turn, this unit does not have the Fights First ability, but instead, each time a model in this unit makes an attack, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. Just full rerolls.
There is nothing wrong with full rerolls.
No, definitely not. Especially not if you have dev wounds.
You had to give something up for it. It's very balanced.
I mean, Fights First is very strong, but it happens that there's like combos that can be done done with reroll everything.
Oh yeah, almost like having dev wounds on that might mean that you could fish for sixes. Hashtag buy our merch.
Hey, we've got merch, Warhammer.com.
Speaking of wolf jail, there's wolf girls who could get you sent to jail.
Wow.
I don't know. I got nothing to work with.
Bricky, help.
We suck at ads, man. It'd be crazy if some company was stupid enough to pay us to do an ad read.
That would be wild. Right, back to Chaos Demons. Yeah, there were several units that happened to have devastating wounds. Particularly Fiends were that was like hey, look, they're cheap. They've got a shitload of attacks and they have devastating wounds. Let's jam all of them.
They do damage too, by the way.
Yeah, I think it was AP -2 as well. Like, they were disgusting, and giving them full rerolls was wild. You also had like Keeper of Secrets was still solid. All of the chariots were similarly ridiculous in the amount of damage that they output, and it's also Slanesh, so like you have quick movement. It was very aggressive. They did end up nerfing this reasonably quickly though.
Yes, it only made it to the next data slate. Legions of Excess got myrtleited, and with it Slanesh for the rest of the edition.
Yeah,
Even after EC launched. How's your Fulcrum data sheet?
it technically exists, I suppose, but yeah, they nerfed this one pretty hard. So the actual fix to the detachment rule ended up being just rerolling hit rolls and rerolling wound rolls of 1. Technically, there was like an in-between time of like that happened during Shadow of Chaos, and you only got reroll hit of 1 and wound of 1 outside, but like whatever. I don't remember the exact timeline on that one other than they neutered it, essentially. You did not get to just fish.
But the best part of Legions of Excess nerf was it finally was enough to make me say, all right, if EC comes out, I'll give Eric all of my Slanesh demons, except for a Keeper of Secrets. And then we did.
Yeah, then that happened.
Now you own too many Fiends. Enjoy painting anteater titties.
I think they look cool.
I love Fiends. My balls don't, though.
The fuck, dude?
That was the models I was putting together.
I'm sure it was when you burned them. Still, what the fuck, man? I guess like during the same fix, they reworked some strats, and they really nerfed the chariots. They got sent to Legends. Don't worry, 2 of them came back.
Hey, at least they unlegends our dog.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Let's Legends Karanak while he's the front and center model in the current advertisement we just posted.
Oh, that was brilliant.
God damn, GW masters.
Yeah, so that was a pretty big nerf to Legions of Excess detachment, but like it was crazy how good this detachment was at the time. Chaos Demons itself was doing all right.
There were other problems at the same time as this. Death Guard's Grotmus detachment was doing very good. God, there was a few others I can't remember though.
It was a big shakeup at the time, and this particular detachment came out as like oh, that's the problem.
It definitely gets a slot as the Grotmus mistake.
Yeah.
Which, now that we've seen all 4 Horsemen, we should talk a bit about the balance of 10th and our thoughts on the pros and cons. But I do want to say, like, Grotmus itself, not a mistake.
No, Grotmus itself is great. The idea of giving out more detachments, good.
The problem from a balance standpoint is it is when you are most likely to add something to an army that the original design did not have in mind.
Right.
And you might end up breaking something. But that's okay if it means everyone gets more stuff. Occasionally you send out something broken and we get it patched later in a data slate. That's what data slates are for.
And I think that does kind of lead into like 10th has done a pretty good job of balancing and handling these problem detachment or rules or whatever in a pretty quick way.
Yeah, most of what we looked at in the long list all came from Index Land. There were very few that were actually Codex era ones. Also, from another note, I went back through 9th's Horsemen and I was fascinated with how many of them had their issues fixed by 10th edition's core design changes. Things like weapons of the same name can be different now on different data sheets.
Right.
You aren't locked to the name determines what the weapon is. We got keywords.
Yes.
Dear God, the basic tools. We got the rock tied to the stick of game development.
The keywords helped a lot. I mean, I think the change to keywords led to problems like indirect direct fire and dev wounds that were shown from the Aeldari index that we talked about, but there were also ways to allow them to be fixed cleanly.
Yeah, it is both the thing that first was broken, because like when you make a list of 20 of something, something's going to be broken.
Yeah.
But it is its own solution built in. And a lot of the 10th edition balance just generally has been better. Like looking at it historically, as much as you may complain about whatever the current problem in whatever meta was, you probably forgot it 3 months later until we brought it up again. That's a great sign. Other than like Index Eldar being like 70+% for months, most things capped out at like they'd win 6 out of 10 games instead of 5 out of 10 games. And it's just too good when you're playing a bunch of meta stuff together.
Yeah, most of the like, oh, that was the strong army at the time, that was the problem, were really only like 55-ish% win rates, maybe to 60 or so, which, yeah, I mean, that's not optimal, but most of the time it wasn't 70. It wasn't the, oh shit, don't play anything other than that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's important to remember, like we said at the beginning, there's always a dominant thing in a meta. That's how metas work.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something that is the best thing in the field and that everyone starts focusing on. Ideally, the meta will shift and evolve itself over the course of time, and GW should just have to kick it a little bit in the corners and bump something 20 points or tone down a rule in a detachment or whatever and move on, and the edition has mostly worked that way.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a great job of like doing that little kick here and there to like both tune certain things down, but to also buff other things.
Yeah, like a great shout out. Look, AdMech came out as garbage, literal trash on paper.
Yeah.
The data slate multiple times now has had them take time to figure out what's wrong with Guard and how they can fix it within the confines of what they're working with. Full-on changes to weapon profiles, detachments, core army rules, keywords on data sheets, all sorts of stuff over the edition to fix them up. Fantastic work from the digital rules standpoint. Keep pressing this further. It's going great. You can do it. I know we can get to free digital rules that make everything easier to track.
Yeah, I mean, it's also one of those, like, we did have a Grotmus detachment on our fourth Horseman, but like in general, 10th edition didn't really power creep. It didn't push everything to be just better than what came out. And like, if it was, it got nerfed.
Yeah, and that was a big thing when we went back and looked at ninth, was how often the problems that were in the long list and in the eventual final four was because the new codex came out and it had to be better than the last codex that came out, so it was cracked.
It's like strength increased on the weapons, everyone. And it's like, what?
Yeah, like just to remind you of what 9th edition's Horsemen were like, the Flamers had strength 5, AP -2 Flamers with D6 +3 for their shots.
Oh, I do remember that now.
What?
I remember that a lot. That was like what gave me fear of flamers.
That's a generic garbage unit at the end of the edition that was just like, it's got to be better than the one in the last book, so we got to pump the numbers in every physical way.
Yeah.
Votan came out, and the math on that codex is a thing to live in legends. Dear Lord, what if we have these little squat boys and they are better than Custodes in every way mathematically?
There was definitely power creep in 9th. And like, you can see some things happening in 10th, but generally that's just been additional complexity added, which in itself can add a bit of power just by options.
Yes, room for things to break.
But like, not inherently, let's just make number bigger.
I think 10th has done a very good job from that standpoint compared to 9th.
Just like in general, 10th edition has been quite good from a gameplay aspect, from balance, from just like the gameplay itself working. There's definitely other complaints that we've had.
Part of it being it's easier to balance checkers than a TCG in complexity difference between 9th and 10th.
Yeah, so that has its own ups and downs, but like, yeah, 10th has done pretty good. There's definitely some scary horsemen on this list, but in general, not as bad as 9th.
All right, that's it for the main topic, but let's do a quick shout out for some stuff and get into our lovely patrons. First off, we joked during the episode, but we do have merch, poorhammer.com. There is the new design for the Okame Musume. Get it while it's hot. It's gone forever in less than 2 months.
Yeah, there's t-shirts, hoodies zip up, stickers.
We are also streaming. You can go watch the VODs over on Solely Singleton. You can go watch us stream live at Poor Hammer on Twitch. I'm going to, as soon as we're done with this recording, go play with some dinosaurs.
Yeah, it should be a pretty chill stream, honestly. Also, just another reminder, like, we're planning to be at AdeptaCon. Don't go out of your way because we're not doing anything special, but like, I'm just kind of looking forward to it. So that's why we're bringing it up. We're going to hang out, chill, play some games.
All right, but with all of that out of the way, let's talk about how awesome all the people supporting us are. If you want to go on patreon.com/solely-singleton right now, you can join great patrons like Powser Can Boost, and also our patrons who pay so much that we shout them out every month. They are A Pulsating Ball of Pure Energy,
A Dachshund,
Adrian Franke,
Alice Jeans,
Alan Dunn,
Amdragon,
Amiss,
Andreas,
Angry Zellers,
Another Hairy Sasquatch.
Are bald men predisposed to chaos corruption? Well, I shaved my head and then we started debating an ad read deal. So yes.
Wow. Ave Dominus Nuts.
Bald is beautiful, Brad. Shave the dome.
Bedlam's Nemesis.
Biggs the Purple Necron.
Blobble's 180.
Bob Loblaw's Loblog. That only took 2 tries.
That's not bad. Bob Mayers.
Bob Kerr.
Brad said my name was too long.
I did. I yelled at a lot of patrons for it. You'll find there's a lot less 400-word patron names this time, which is why I have time to yell at you all. Brad, what is the character limit on Patreon user?
Brad's a busty body pillow.
BRB gotta snazz my wagon.
Can you dig it?
Canuck, eh?
Carnivax.
Chad the Frog.
Christopher Garigliano.
Christopher S. Dawson.
Chroma Vale.
Colin H.
Commander Cicada.
Connor King.
Connor Millett.
Craig Judge.
Crazy Shack 48.
Cube 1359.
Dairy Sorcerer addicted to mana potions.
Daniel Field 5150.
Dear GW, thanks for the banana. Now finish World Eaters.
Director Jeff.
Dominic Calcico.
Dragon 3543.
Edward Lawrence.
Iravi.
Ethan Flores.
Eve the Thief.
Fabius Bile and the amazing human skin Dreamcoat.
Fear the Beard.
Fiona thinks a brontosaurus in a rice hat is cute.
Frosty Hobbies.
Gathering Clouds.
Gear Overlord.
G-Dubs, please update agents. Michelle.
Geet.
Glassy.
Gusty Hyena.
Hamrock.
Heretic Talks.
Hey look, Marathi and Lilith are playing footsie with each other.
How to Smash a Demon. A Brad and Eric story. What?
Hyena Beans is not a space wolf. They play Skaven.
Hypnotic Spectre.
Ilindi.
Iron Father.
Isaac Hall.
Istvan Wolf.
Jack Gaming.
Jarrett DePerna.
Jerry Kill Team. I hate that guy, by the way.
I don't hate him. Justin Udacek.
Khan Tunsil.
Caden Moore.
Kentorb.
You son of a bitch.
It's like banana. You just keep going until you stop.
I know. Kinibianianian.
Kozak.
Krishna.
Lucas.
Logan Grimnar can be my daddy bear.
Looks like Team Rocket is Baja blasting off again.
Lord of Chaos.
Matthew Tsushima.
Mech Lord of the Bad Dragon Clan.
Michael Melcher.
Midwestern Chaos Cultist. Corn for the Corn God.
Mitchell.
Mixolodius.
Burnt toast.
Morpheal 55.
Mauser Schmauser.
Nate Braun.
Not Gaffy.
Nadi.
Omega Shark.
Pacific Rim 3. The Return of Christ.
Pierce forgot about changing their name as a bit for a while.
Proteus 7331.
Quellen.
Rain Pletcher.
Reigns 13.
Rethus Khan.
Ringray.
Rock.
Rogue Trader Jake.
Ross Warlock.
Raw.
Rymora.
Rodgrod Mad Flood.
Someone said this is just like rice pudding or something.
Huh.
And also we pronounce it super wrong.
Damn, I was like, if they knew that, that must mean I nailed it.
Also, apparently it breaks Borrelio's text, so it doesn't even show up in the actual list and people get confused.
That sounds right.
Saf Jep. It's German. Deal with it.
Sriracha Sauce.
Scott Gallmeyer.
Scott the Irish.
Scuba Steve supports Sturm Tiger shenanigans.
Shane the Wizard.
Shax's Pet Otter.
She shadow on my warp till I synapse.
Sister Leviathan of the Sororitas.
Smarty Boy.
Solanite.
That time Brad got reincarnated as a Fire Slayer. Volume 36 on sale soon.
That was the longest name I let stay.
Nah, it's not bad.
The Commissar ordered me to use my oppressor cannon.
The Mailman.
The Solar Sect of Mystic Wisdom.
The Crusader 13.
The Fish Guy.
The Nerds Table.
The Rango.
Tommy McGrath.
Whoa, 126 ballistas grenade launcher shots plus blast be upon ye.
Ualuna.
Vati the Picori.
Vangrith.
Woodstock.
Yoo-Hoo Enthusiast.
Why So Mad 2.
LiQWYD.
Zebru.
And Zimbabwe.
And we have producers who we love so much we shout them out every episode. They are 3D Frank.
Aetherian networking with Demon Princes.
Ava Tech Adept.
Blastmasters are translators for dubstep weebs.
Breaking news. Why is all news so depressing?
Mood. C5 Dynamite.
Charles Lang.
Kamsar Kruz, Pegger of the Imperium.
Corvus.
Demolition Man.
Eric, what progress have you made on the Baneblade? Well, do we have news for you guys?
Gilgamesh Versus.
Grant Yost.
Halo Gamer 2005.
Hugh Jacksman.
I've got a boner for murder.
So do I. Yon Guy C.
Kiwi Fruitbird.
La Bloop Bloop.
Leah.
Loaf of Disappointment.
NJ Harley. Dylan,
Pizza 00100,
RoboHop,
Sam Brown,
Scott the Jim Crab, Mr. Fastastic,
something something Cracker Barrel. I'm out of name ideas.
That Mighty.
The fucking God Emperor of Mankind.
The next 3 units, Eric has to paint hashtag Mike Empty has a Baneblade.
The terrible Toledo Tickler.
Tier list, please. Hashtag I will never forget.
Victorian Batman.
War Game Simulator.
Well, the pegs start coming and they don't stop coming, filled to the brim so that I hit the board running. That's the longest one Eric let us keep because he likes music too much.
I let it happen. It's 2 little lines. It's fine. But the last one was redacted. You had too long of a name.
Get fucked. And on that note,
thank you so much for supporting the show.
we're out of here.
Sounds good.